Hi, I'm Elizabeth Cribbs, and today I'm doing my final speech on my oral communications book by Travis and Young. This is a really great book with a lot of good information in it. It has a total of 14 chapters in it, and I will be discussing 1 to 2 concepts of each chapter. In chapter 1, it's titled Communicating for Life, and it talks about how communication is to effectively share meaning implying that a person must comprehend the intended meaning of the other person's use of language. Having good communication skills will help you succeed and move through life with self-confidence and a feeling of accomplishment. Moving on to chapter 2, perpetual process occurs in 3 stages: selection, organization, and interpretation. Selection is where your mind decides which of the numerous daily distractions are worth recognizing. Organization is where the brain organizes stimuli you receive by grouping them in meaningful ways. The book gave a good example of this with a paragraph of words with rearranged letters. It talked about how most people can read the paragraph because of the fact that our minds fill in the blank. So for example, if you were looking at this, you could actually read it because your mind is filling in the blank. It in fact says, according to a researcher. Thought it was mind-blowing. Interpretation is where you assign meaning. In the book, it talks about 2 people watching the same car accident, but they see it in 2 different ways. One's on the phone and one's actually watching the accident, while the other person was watching, but on their phone, okay? They saw it as the driver swerving to avoid hitting the car in their lane, okay? And the other person was watching, says that the driver was obviously texting while driving. So interpretation, 2 people can see things in different ways, okay? It's seen through the eyes, your eyes, in different ways. Moving on to chapter 3, it discusses language. Language is the most common tool that everyone uses to communicate. The book states in this chapter that in a basic communication course, it is important for you to understand the fundamentals of the language process in order to make the appropriate word choices in your interpersonal remarks and avoid misunderstandings when speaking to others. Chapter 4 is about nonverbal communication. There are many types of nonverbal communication, such as body movement, time communication, smell communication, touch communication, paralanguage, space communication, and artifacts. In chapter 5, communicating interpersonally. This chapter starts off by discussing interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication happens when 2 people in either a personal relationship or a professional, but it happens between 2 people in either a personal relationship or a professional relationship. Another objective chapter 5 discusses is the 3 goals of listening: informal listening, critical listening, and active listening. Informal listening is acquiring directions in order to gain new information. Critical listening is when you compare what you know to what you're hearing. And active listening, this is asking questions in order to find out more. In chapter 6, Navigating Relationship and Conflicts, this introduces the Affection Exchange Theory, or AET. This theory was created by Corey Floyd. The AET suggests that providing affection communication can help one to achieve the basic human motivations of survival and procreation. According to Floyd, this is the theory based on behaviors that encode feelings of fondness and intense positive regard. This is a relationship-centered theory of interpersonal communication. Moving on to chapter 7, Initial Speech Preparation. This chapter is where I learned many important things about the process that a person needs to go through in order to have a successful speech. Chapter 7 introduces the planning stages of a speech design and also has a discussion of the importance of knowing about the audience and the physical setting when you prepare your speech. Speech design process has steps to follow. These steps definitely help bring organization to your speech. Choosing a general purpose, selecting a topic, narrowing the topic to at least 3, because narrowing a topic is huge. The importance of narrowing a topic is because a lot of topics are broad, so you want to narrow it down to at least 3 would be great, and you talk about 3 individual things within your topic. Key organization, goal statement features, your theses, you analyze the audience, research, organization, outline, delivery style, visual aids, and practice. This chapter explains that practice makes perfect, not just for sports, but it's for speeches as well. In chapter 8, constructing the speech. This chapter is on constructing your speech. It goes step by step and pretty much lays out the outline for you. This chapter also discusses 3 places to begin your research, which are very apparent, is the internet, the library, and you can also have interviews with your peers or anyone you come in contact with to find out more. In chapter 9, it's presenting the speech. This chapter focuses on many things such as the 4 styles of delivery, visual aids, and practice. The 4 styles of delivery are impromptu, speaking with no preparation at all, manuscript, reading from a written paper, memorized, written out and committed to memory. It's where you just memorize what you have written. And extemporaneous, using keywords to promote a conversational style speech. This chapter discusses how important it is to practice your speech and how visual aids are a great way to hold the audience's attention. In chapter 9, this is understanding the principles of persuasion. This chapter starts out by defining persuasion, which is the process that involves the communicator who tries to influence the attitudes, beliefs, values, or actions of another individual through message design and delivery, both formally and informally. It's like talking someone into the way you think or believe. Chapter 11 is on constructing the persuasive presentation. This chapter gives help on constructing a persuasive presentation. With a persuasive speech, it helps to be educated on the topic you are persuading your audience about. This helps persuade the audience a little easier. For example, I did not do my persuasive speech on why we should be vaccinated. I did my speech on why people should own a dog or an animal of some kind. Why? Because I know more about dogs and animals than I do the medical field, or why it's important to be vaccinated. Also, with having an interest in the topic you're talking about, it helps the speech not be so boring, in my opinion. In chapter 12, it's talking about interviewing. In this chapter, interviewing is defined and resumes are introduced. Interviewing is the process where a person demonstrates effective communication skills to obtain employment or a promotion. This chapter discusses correct way to write a resume and informs you to make sure it is attractive enough to the hiring person. The book states that most companies do not really look at the entire resume. In fact, they discard them because there's so many to look through. With that being said, your resume needs to have something that grabs the company's attention. An effective resume must be visually attractive, contain no typos, showcase qualities, strengths, and experience, follow the format that is required by your professional area. Chapter 13, working in teams. In this chapter, it explains the difference between groups and teams, which is a group composed of individuals with similar ideas or goals coming together to complete a task or to solve a problem for the common good. And a team is a sense of cohesiveness they experience while working together for a period of time. A team works to accomplish their task. This chapter also discusses selecting a leader and styles of leadership. In chapter 14, moving forward, it's basically summing up the whole book. Okay, so this chapter starts off by drawing you in, asking questions. Questions like, can you remember leaving home for the first day of school and how you felt as you lost sight of your parents' faces? This chapter is basically a summary of the entire book, and it reiterates things of each chapter. In conclusion, this book taught me many things, but the main thing I am taking from this book is the organizational factor. Being organized before doing a speech is very important. The outline that one makes is a good way to help guide them through their speech and help them in being successful. I've learned throughout this course that there are many ways to outline a speech, but being organized while doing so, in my opinion, is the most important thing.